Welcome to our channel, where we share emotional and motivational English stories. If you want to improve your English and be inspired, you are in the right place. He was my husband for 30 years. I gave him my youth, my love, my care, and my loyalty. But one day, he looked at me and said, "You're too old now." And he left me for a younger woman. This is not just my story. It's a story of pain, survival, and finding strength when life breaks you into pieces. The beginning of my story. My name is Aisha. I am 55 years old, and today I am sitting alone in the same house where I once raised my children, cooked meals for my family, and dreamed of growing old with the man I loved. But life doesn't always go the way we dream. My husband, the man I thought would stand with me until the end, left me for a younger woman. Even now, saying those words feels like a knife cutting through my chest. But this is my story. When I first met my husband, I was just 24. I was young, full of energy, and full of dreams. He was handsome, strong, and had the kind of smile that made me believe I was the luckiest woman in the world. He promised me love, protection, and a future together. And I believed him with all my heart. We got married after a year of knowing each other, and like every bride, I thought my life was going to be perfect. In the early years, everything felt magical. We lived in a small rented apartment, but we were happy. I would wait for him to come home from work, and he would bring me flowers or sweets just to make me smile. We would sit together for hours, talking about our future, buying a house, having children, traveling the world. At night, I would fall asleep listening to his promises, believing that we would always be together. Soon, we had our first child, a baby boy. I remember holding him in my arms and seeing tears in my husband's eyes. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." In that moment, I felt complete. A few years later, we had a daughter, and our family felt perfect. My world revolved around my children and my husband. I gave up my own career dreams to be a full-time wife and mother because I wanted to give them the best. I didn't regret it. Love made sacrifices easy. But as the years went by, things began to change slowly. He started coming home late from work. At first, he would explain, "There's a lot of pressure at the office," or "I had to meet clients." I trusted him because I loved him. But the late nights became more frequent, and the flowers and sweets stopped coming. Instead of sitting together and talking, he preferred watching TV in silence. I thought maybe this was just normal. After all, marriage changes with time, right? I looked at myself in the mirror one day and noticed the first wrinkle on my face. My hair had started to turn gray. I wasn't the young 24-year-old girl he had married. I was a mother in her 40s, tired from responsibilities, busy with children, and no longer the beautiful bride I used to be. I tried to take care of myself, new clothes, hair dye, creams, but deep down, I could feel a distance growing between us. Whenever I tried to talk to him about it, he would say, "You worry too much. Everything is fine." But I knew it wasn't fine. A wife can always feel when her husband's love begins to fade. His eyes didn't shine the same way when he looked at me. His voice didn't carry the warmth it once did. And when I touched his hand, it felt cold, like he was pulling away from me without saying a word. I held on tightly to the memories of our past. I told myself, he loves me. He has just changed because life is stressful. I cooked his favorite meals. I tried to dress up when he came home. I even tried to be more patient with him. But the truth was, no matter how much I tried, I couldn't bring back the man I once knew. He was drifting away, slowly but surely. Then came the day that changed everything. I will never forget it. It was my 55th birthday. My children had called me, they wished me love and promised to visit soon. But my husband? He didn't even remember. No cake, no flowers, not even a simple happy birthday. That night, he came home late again, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. My heart sank, but I didn't ask him anything. I was too scared of the answer. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the living room alone. I looked around at the photos on the wall. Pictures of us smiling, holding our children, celebrating anniversaries. I whispered to myself, where did that man go? Where did our love go? Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I wiped them quickly. I still had hope. I thought, maybe this is just a phase. Maybe he will remember who we are, what we built together. But deep inside, I already knew the truth. A woman always knows when her husband's heart belongs to someone else. And yet, I wasn't ready to face it. I wasn't ready to believe that after 30 years of love, sacrifice, and building a life together, I could be replaced. that the man who once promised me forever was now looking for forever in someone younger, someone prettier, someone who hadn't lived 55 years. My story didn't end that night. In fact, that was just the beginning, because soon the truth would come out. Soon, I would hear the words no wife ever wants to hear. Words that would shatter my world and force me to face a reality I never imagined. But before I take you there, I want to tell you something. Pain doesn't break you unless you let it. I didn't know it at the time, but the storm that was coming would not only destroy my marriage, it would also show me my real strength. This is my story, and it's only just beginning. The signs were always there, but I chose not to see them. I told myself stories to stay calm. He's tired from work. He's just stressed. Marriage changes with age. But deep inside, I knew. Every time he came home smelling of a perfume that wasn't mine, every time he looked at his phone and quickly hid the screen, every time his smile was brighter when reading a text than when looking at me, I knew. My heart already knew. But knowing and accepting are two different things. For 30 years, I was his wife, his partner, the mother of his children. How could I accept that another woman had taken my place? One evening, he came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard him talking on the phone. His voice was soft, playful, almost like the young man I had fallen in love with years ago. But those words, that tone, it wasn't for me. He said, "I can't wait to see you again. You make me feel alive." I froze. The knife in my hand almost slipped. My heart was beating so loudly, I thought he could hear it from the living room. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall, listening, every word slicing me into pieces. "I'll tell her soon," he whispered. "She'll understand. She's strong. She'll be fine without me." She was me, his wife of 3 decades. The woman who had washed his clothes, cooked his meals, raised his children, stood by his side when he had nothing. That night, my hands shook as I set the dinner table. I wanted to scream at him, demand the truth, throw every memory in his face. But when I looked at him, sitting there calmly eating the food I had cooked, I couldn't speak. My throat was locked. The storm came a week later. He sat me down in the living room. His face was cold, expressionless. The man I once knew was gone. He didn't even try to soften the blow. "Aisha," he said, "we need to talk." Those words are the death sentence of every marriage. My hands trembled. "What is it?" I whispered. He sighed, as if what he was about to say was a burden for him, not me. "I can't do this anymore. I don't love you the way I used to. I've met someone else. She makes me feel young again. She understands me." I stared at him, my ears ringing. My world stopped. "Someone else," I repeated, my voice breaking. He didn't look ashamed. He didn't look guilty. He looked relieved, as if finally confessing freed him. "Yes, she's younger. Much younger. And I want to be with her." For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. Tears filled my eyes, but I forced myself to look at him. "You want to leave me after 30 years? After everything we've built? After everything I gave up for you?" He shifted uncomfortably, but his eyes stayed firm. "Don't make this harder than it is. You'll be fine. You're strong. The kids are grown now. We don't have to pretend anymore." Pretend? That word hit me like a slap. So all these years, all the moments I thought were love, had been a lie? I couldn't hold back anymore. "I gave you my life," I cried. "My youth, my dreams, everything. I stood by you when you had nothing. I raised your children. I sacrificed myself for this family. And now, because I am older, because I have wrinkles and gray hair, you throw me away like I'm nothing." My voice echoed through the room, but he didn't flinch. He simply looked away, as if my pain was too inconvenient for him to face. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed we had shared for 30 years, staring at the man who had just destroyed me. He slept peacefully, as if he hadn't torn my heart out. I wanted to shake him awake, scream at him, ask him how he could betray me like this. But all I did was cry silently into my pillow. The next morning, he left early. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't kiss my forehead like he used to. He just walked out. And for the first time in my marriage, I felt truly alone. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. I couldn't eat. Food tasted like ashes. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him with her, laughing, holding hands, living the life that should have been ours. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Puffy eyes, pale skin, a woman broken by betrayal. The neighbors whispered. Some pretended to pity me. Others judged me. "Maybe she didn't take care of herself," I heard one say. Maybe she was too old-fashioned. Men want excitement. Their words cut deeper than knives. Was it my fault? Was I not enough? My children called often. They knew something was wrong, but I couldn't tell them the full truth. How could I? How could I admit that their father had chosen someone else over me? That he had traded 30 years of marriage for youth and beauty? At night, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by memories. The photo albums, the wedding pictures, the letters he once wrote me. I held them in my hands and cried until no tears were left. But one night, as I looked at those old pictures, something inside me shifted. I saw a young Aisha smiling in a white dress, full of hope. I saw a mother holding her newborn baby with pride. I saw a woman who had given everything with love and loyalty. And I realized this wasn't my shame. This wasn't my failure. This was his choice, his betrayal, his weakness. Yes, he left me for a younger woman. But that didn't erase my worth. That didn't erase the love I had given. That didn't erase the woman I had become. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, "This is not the end of me. If he wants to leave, let him go. I will not let this break me. I will rise again." At that moment, I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew one thing: my story wasn't over. And that was the first time I felt a spark of strength hidden beneath all the pain. A spark that would later grow into a fire. The day he finally left the house was strangely quiet. He packed his bags while I sat on the sofa, frozen. He didn't look at me. He didn't hug me goodbye. He just closed the door behind him, leaving behind 30 years of life as if it meant nothing. The sound of that door shutting still echoes in my ears. It wasn't just a door. It was the end of everything I thought I knew. For days, I walked around the house like a ghost. His clothes were gone from the closet, his toothbrush missing from the bathroom, his favorite mug no longer on the kitchen shelf. Every empty space reminded me of him, reminded me that I had been abandoned. I sat at the dining table alone, staring at the chair where he once sat, and I wondered, how do you live after half your life has been thrown away? The first nights were the hardest. I couldn't sleep in the bed we once shared. I moved to the living room sofa, hugging a blanket to my chest like a child. The silence was unbearable. The walls seemed to whisper, "You are alone now." I would cry until my head ached, then fall asleep only to wake up with swollen eyes and a heavy heart. The world outside didn't stop for my pain. Neighbors gossiped. Friends avoided me because they didn't know what to say. Some women looked at me with pity, while others looked at me with judgment. Maybe she wasn't enough, I heard one say at the market. Maybe she let herself go. Those words sank deep into my soul, feeding my insecurities. Was I really not enough? Was my worth measured only by youth and beauty? Even my own children, though supportive, struggled to understand. My son called me often, saying, "Mama, you're strong, you'll get through this." My daughter tried to cheer me up, telling me to visit her, to stay busy. But deep inside, they didn't really know the storm I was facing. Because unless you've been left behind, unless you've felt the sting of betrayal after decades of loyalty, you cannot truly understand. I started questioning everything about myself. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the wrinkles on my face, the gray strands of my hair, the softness of my body. I pulled at my skin, wishing I could erase the years. I compared myself to the younger women I saw on the streets, slim, energetic, full of life. And I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I am too old. Maybe I am not beautiful anymore. Depression became my shadow. I stopped cooking proper meals. I ate bread and tea because I had no energy for more. I stopped opening the curtains because sunlight felt too bright for my dark heart. I didn't want to meet anyone. I didn't want to hear questions like, "How are you?" or "What happened?" because I didn't have answers. I was broken, and no words could fix me. But one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was sitting on the sofa, staring blankly at the wall, when the phone rang. It was my daughter. She said, "Mama, I know you're hurting, but please don't give up on yourself. You always told me a woman's strength is shown when life tests her. This is your test." Her words pierced through my sadness. A test. Yes, life was testing me. And what example would I set for my children if I gave up now? Would I teach my daughter that her value ends when her beauty fades? Would I teach my son that loyalty means nothing? No. I couldn't let his betrayal define me. That night, I made a decision. I walked to the mirror again, but this time, instead of looking at my wrinkles with disgust, I touched them gently. Every line on my face was a story, of laughter, of struggle, of survival. My gray hair was proof of wisdom, not weakness. My body, though no longer young, had carried children, had lived through years of sacrifice. I wasn't worthless. I was a woman who had lived, loved, and endured. The next morning, I forced myself to open the curtains. Sunlight filled the room, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a little warmth inside. I went to the kitchen, cooked myself a proper breakfast, and sat at the table with dignity. Yes, I was alone, but I was still alive. I began taking small steps. I started going for morning walks. At first, I felt embarrassed, imagining people whispering about me, the woman whose husband left her. But then I realized their whispers didn't matter. What mattered was that I was moving forward. I cleaned the house, not because I expected him back, but because I wanted to reclaim my space. I put away old pictures, not to erase the past, but to make room for my future. I joined a small women's group at the community center. At first, I was shy, hesitant to share my story. But when I finally spoke, I realized I wasn't alone. Many women had faced betrayal, abandonment, loneliness. And yet, they were standing strong. If they could rise, why couldn't I? The nights were still hard. I still cried sometimes, clutching the emptiness in my bed. But slowly, I began to realize that pain doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes a reminder of your strength. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I whispered to myself, "He left me for a younger woman. But he didn't take my soul with him. He didn't take my worth. He didn't take my future. That still belongs to me." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because I had survived it. And that was the beginning of my new life. If someone had told me 2 years ago that I would be smiling again, I would not have believed them. Back then, I felt as if my life had ended the day he walked out of our home. But today, when I look at myself in the mirror, I see a woman who has risen from the ashes. Not the same woman I once was, but someone stronger, wiser, and freer. My journey wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy. But slowly, I began to transform my pain into purpose. I started writing more regularly. My notebook became my best friend. I wrote about my memories, my heartbreak, my struggles, and my small victories. At first, it was just for myself, but one day my daughter read one of my poems. She looked at me with teary eyes and said, "Mama, your words can heal people. You should share them." I hesitated. Who would want to hear my story? Who would care about a 55-year-old woman abandoned by her husband? But she encouraged me to attend a small gathering at the community center where women shared their life experiences. Nervously, I stood in front of the group and read a piece I had written about betrayal and resilience. To my surprise, when I finished, the room was silent, not because they didn't care, but because they were deeply moved. Then the women began clapping, some wiping their tears. One woman hugged me and said, "Thank you. You spoke my pain. You gave me hope." That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something important. My story wasn't just mine. It belonged to countless women who had been silenced, abandoned, or made to feel unworthy. By sharing my voice, I could help them find theirs. From then on, I started speaking more openly. I joined support groups, gave talks at women's events, and even began writing small articles for the local newspaper. My words weren't perfect, but they were real, and that's what mattered. Every time someone told me, "Your story gave me strength," I felt my wounds healing a little more. But it wasn't just about others, it was about me too. I was discovering passions I had buried for years. I took up painting, something I had loved as a young girl, but had abandoned after marriage. With every brushstroke, I felt like I was coloring my soul again. My first painting was a broken vase with flowers growing out of it. When I looked at it, I smiled. That vase was me broken, but still blooming. I also began exploring new places. For years, my life was limited to home, children, and my husband's needs. But now I had freedom. I visited cities I had only dreamed of before. I walked through crowded bazaars, tasted new foods, watched sunsets by the sea, and felt alive in ways I hadn't for decades. Traveling showed me that the world was bigger than my pain, and there was still so much waiting for me to experience. One of the most beautiful changes came in my relationship with myself. For years, I had lived with self-doubt, believing I wasn't enough. But now, I spoke to myself kindly. I stood in front of the mirror and said, "You are worthy. You are beautiful. You are enough." At first, it felt strange. But the more I repeated it, the more I began to believe it. I also reconnected with my children in a deeper way. My son once told me, "Mama, you are braver than you know. You showed us that strength doesn't mean never falling. It means standing back up." My daughter said, "You've become my inspiration. If I ever face what you faced, I'll remember how you rose above it." Their words filled my heart with pride. If nothing else, I had given them the gift of resilience. And then came the day I saw him again. It was at a wedding. He was there, holding the hand of the younger woman he had left me for. For a moment my heart raced, memories flooding back. But as I looked at him, something inside me had changed. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel longing. I felt nothing. He looked at me too, perhaps expecting me to look broken, bitter, defeated. But instead, he saw me smiling, standing tall, dressed beautifully, surrounded by friends. For the first time, I realized I had truly let him go. He no longer had power over me. He had chosen his path, and I had chosen mine. And I knew mine was brighter. Later that night, as I sat with a group of women at the wedding, laughing and sharing stories, I thought about how far I had come. From crying alone on the sofa to laughing freely in public, from hiding my pain to inspiring others, from losing myself to finding myself again. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would never again let my worth depend on someone else's love. I would love myself enough to know that I was whole, complete, and worthy, just as I was. Yes, he left me for a younger woman. But in leaving, he gave me something unexpected, a chance to find myself again. And now, I was ready for the next chapter of my life. A chapter not written by betrayal, but by strength, freedom, and self-love. When I look back at the woman I was the day he left, I hardly recognize her. Broken, hopeless, drowning in tears, believing her life was over. And now, when I look at the woman I have become, I feel proud. Not because my life is perfect, it isn't. Not because I never feel pain, I still do sometimes. But because I didn't let that pain destroy me. I rose above it. People often ask me, how did you survive? How did you heal after 30 years of marriage ended with betrayal? And my answer is simple. I stopped waiting for someone else to save me. I saved myself. At first, I believed his betrayal was the end of me. I thought, who will love me now? Who will stand by me when I am old? Who am I without him? But slowly, I discovered that love doesn't always come from another person. The most important love is the love you give yourself. I began to see my scars not as signs of weakness, but as proof of survival. Every wrinkle on my face was a story of laughter, tears, and strength. My gray hair was not something to hide. It was a crown of experience. I was no longer ashamed of my age. Instead, I embraced it. And something amazing happened. When I started valuing myself, life started opening new doors. I began mentoring younger women, telling them not to lose themselves in relationships. I told them, build your own identity. Don't make the mistake I did. Don't give up your dreams completely for someone else. Love deeply, yes, but don't forget to love yourself too. The more I spoke, the more I realized that my pain had a purpose. I wasn't just healing myself, I was helping others heal. I also began enjoying the simple joys of life again. I read books late into the night, something I had missed for years. I planted flowers in my garden and watched them bloom, just as I was blooming again. I traveled to places I had always wanted to see, but never could because my husband had other priorities. Standing by the ocean one evening, watching the waves crash against the shore, I felt free, completely free, for the first time in my life. And here's the truth I want to share. Being left for a younger woman was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it broke me. Yes, it made me question my worth. But in losing him, I found myself. I discovered that I was more than a wife, more than a mother, more than someone's second choice. I was Aisha, whole, strong, beautiful in my own way, and enough. Do I still think about him? Sometimes. Do I still feel the sting of betrayal? Yes, especially when I remember the years I gave him. But do I regret my past? No, because every part of my journey shaped me into who I am today. And today, I am proud of myself. I know there are women out there listening to me right now, women who are broken, abandoned, betrayed, or made to feel like they are too old or not enough. To you, I want to say this: you are enough. You always were. Your value doesn't decrease because someone fails to see it. If someone leaves you, let them go. Their absence will hurt, but it will also open space for your own growth, your own light, your own freedom. Don't be afraid of loneliness. Sometimes, being alone is the first step to finding yourself. Don't be afraid of aging. Every year adds wisdom, depth, and beauty to your soul. Don't be afraid of starting over. You are never too old to begin again. When my husband left me for a younger woman, I thought my story had ended. But now I know it was just a new chapter. And this chapter is brighter, freer, and stronger than anything before. So today, as I sit here sharing my story with you, I want you to remember this. If you are going through heartbreak, don't let it break you. If someone has abandoned you, don't abandon yourself. If someone has told you that you are not enough, prove them wrong by standing tall, smiling, and living your life with dignity and courage. I am 55. I have wrinkles, gray hair, and a heart that has been shattered and healed again. But I am not broken. I am not worthless. I am not too old. I am alive. I am strong. And I am free. This is my story. And if you are listening to me today, maybe it can be your story too. A story not of betrayal, but of survival. Not of loss, but of strength. Not of endings, but of new beginnings. Because life doesn't end when someone leaves you. Sometimes that's when it truly begins.